Before starting on any project, make sure you're wearing your personal protective equipment. Your safety comes first. Prepare the roof for fixing dry verge strips to the edge. This is completed before installing TapcoSlate to the roof deck. Measure and cut the dry verge appropriately to the shape of the roof with either a handsaw or, as shown here, a multi-cutter. Nail or screw the dry verge into place on both the top and the side edges. Use a dry verge jointing clip on any joints to keep them watertight. TapcoSlate have a built-in camber, called Inflex, to keep the tiles flat to the roof and eradicates wind lift. Cut the top of standard Tapco slates at 305mm to create a 3/4 slate to use as your eaves or starter course. Slide the first eaves tile into the dry verge strip and then slide the front edge of the tile down 38mm from the fascia board to create an oversail into the gutter when fixed. Nail or screw the eaves course in place, taking care not to use the preformed nailing screwing markers on this course. Nail underneath them and through the tile into the OSB. Use 30mm in length large head galvanized clout nails or Phillips bugle outdoor screws to fix. Use a line or a chalk line to create a straight edge. Lay the 3/4 tiles side by side along the eaves using the side spaces to create a gap between each tile. Once the eaves tiles have been laid, fix the first course of TapcoSlate, broken bond, directly on top of the eaves tiles to create a waterproof seal. Fix the first course directly into the preformed nailing or screwing markers. Again, using the side spaces to create a gap between each tile along the course. Cutting TapcoSlate could not be easier. Simply score with a sharp utility knife 2 or 3 times, and then snap down the cut. Set the tiles out by using the exposure gauge moulded into each tile. The correct exposure is dependent on roof pitch. Details can be found on the fixing guide. Here we set the pitch to the 7.5-inch gauge marker for roof pitches between 30 to 90 degrees. Use the centerline mark to center the tile up to the joint in the tiles below it to create a broken bond and fix into place. Continue the same formula across the entire course using the preformed spaces on every tile for correct gapping. The next and subsequent courses are exactly the same formula, setting out in the traditional slate broken bond pattern by using the exposure gauge at the same increment, centerline and spaces to lay out each course of slates. When using dry verge, slide the tile into the verge and then slide down the roof into the correct exposure gauge position and fix into place. Remember that on the next course, you will need to cut a tile to fix into the dry verge, or the side of the roof if not using a verge, to maintain the broken bond effect. Carefully measure the size needed. Mark the measurement on the tile, remembering to cut the tile edge hidden in the verge strip. Use a straight edge and a utility knife to score the line 2 to 3 times, then snap the tile down the cut. Once again, slide the cut edge of the tile into the dry verge and then slide down the verge on top of the tile below until you reach the correct exposure gauge measurement and then fix into place. TapcoSlate hip and ridge caps are a universal fitting secured by 2 fixings on each cap. They can be cut and shaped just like the standard tiles. Just like TapcoSlate tiles, the hip and ridge caps have an exposure gauge at the side. Ridge caps should be set at the same exposure as the tiles you have fitted, maximum 7.5-inch exposure, and hip caps should always be set at the 6-inch exposure marker. Push down and hold in the desired position. Make sure that the cap is in line with the other caps fitted and then fix into place with 50mm length outdoor screws or galvanized nails using the preformed fixing markers. The fixing should penetrate the cap below so that each cap is secured in place by 4 fixings. Lay subsequent caps in exactly the same way. These should overlap each other as shown to maintain water runoff. When creating ridge to hip joints or junctions seen here on a Victorian or 5-way conservatory roof, It's best to mitre and cut full ridge or hip tiles to the desired shape and fit. Maintaining the use of full tiles instead of small pieces keeps rainfall from penetrating through any cut joints when material is present under the joint. When creating such a complicated junction, it's always best to create a lead or lead substitute flashing cap at this junction to lay underneath the tile work. This will make sure that the joint remains watertight. The ridge cap at the top of the junction can be finished off with a cut, small piece of TapcoSlate and sealed with a butyl sealant compound. Ridge cap fixing is the same as fixing hips. The caps overlap each other at a maximum 7.5-inch exposure gauge and fixed into place with 50mm length outdoor screws or galvanized nails using the preformed fixing markers. A tip when fixing the ridge caps is to hold the cap at the rear when pushing down and fixing, as this keeps the cap flush to the line and avoids it lifting. Tile up to the rooflight window. Measure and cut the pieces needed to fit around the window, leaving a 10mm expansion space around the window edge. Make sure that the bottom edge of the rooflight flashing is above the bottom edge of the tile so that when the next tile is laid, it totally covers the flashing. Measure and cut the next tile. Keep the cut edge towards the window, as this will be covered by the flashing. Make sure that any fixings are above the line so that the next flashing piece covers the fixing screws and maintains its water runoff. Once completed and all your flashing or soaker pieces have been fitted, your rooflight window will look like part of your roof and will be watertight for years to come. Note that the bottom flashing of the window should be fitted on top of the tiles so that rainwater flows down the flashing onto the tiles and maintains its runoff to the gutter. Now stand back and admire your workmanship. Build a beautiful roof today with TapcoSlate Classic.
Northern Building Plastics. Why collect when we can deliver?